everybody, it's Sandi Clarkson here with you today, sharing a process video for My Creative Scrapbook using the July limited edition kit. Today's project is a pretty simple one. I kept it that way that day because I wasn't really feeling very well, but I wanted to go ahead and get started on my kit. And so I decided to do this layout using these papers you see here, and I'm trimming down the paper that's going to go on top to be about 1/4 inch smaller all the way around, so the balloon paper can be, the background paper that is on the edges. And so I do go ahead and gut the paper, knowing that, I can use that for something else, and I do. But I just kind of eyeballed it. I didn't mark it or anything, but, I wanted to leave about 1.5 inches to 2 inches around the edges for stability. And then also for more stability, I later brought in a piece of white cardstock to go underneath the balloon paper, just so that it would have more, substance to it, because I plan to give this layout away to the person who is in the photo. She was celebrating her 30th birthday, and so it was a special day, something to celebrate, and that's kind of what this collection is all about. I hope you've received your kit. If not, I'll have details below about how you can go online and look to see if there are more kits that you can purchase. It's best to be a kit subscriber if you're able, because that way you don't miss anything or any of the collections that come out, and then be disappointed that there aren't any kits left. There you can see me using my Beacons 3-in-1, which I used because I wanted to have some ability to reposition in case I didn't quite, get the paper exactly where it needed to be. And I was off a little bit on the bottom, but I think that was really just kind of the measuring on the paper that was on top. And, so I do have to go back and do some trimming right there, but it was just a little tiny bit that was there. But anyway, I do wish I'd left a little bit more border. So if you do this, I'd recommend at least doing, a 1/4 inch all the way around. Then I would have had more of the balloon paper to show through. But anyway, I'm going to use one of the frames that's in the embellishment kit, and I decide that I want to put that balloon paper behind the frame simply because my photo doesn't fill the frame entirely, and I didn't, I just wanted to be certain that there was something there for the eye to fall on. And then it seems like that I put something there that needed to be adhered to, something else. So I wanted to fill the frame, and so that's what I'm doing, and I'm just trimming it out right here. And I do, I think this is the day I decide that I am getting a new trimmer. So I have ordered a tonic trimmer, and it's arrived, and I've been playing around with it. But you'll probably see me fumbling with it a little bit just as I get used to, where is my cutting line. Anyway, I'm using one of the index cards that's in the embellishment pack, and it's kind of in a peachy color, and I thought that would go nicely with the other elements on the page and the pattern that was there. And I think I'm just deciding here where things are going to go, and so I'm just auditioning as I go along. And, there I go, tapping my fingers like I always do. But I do decide that I want to elevate my photo on some corrugated cardboard to get it up off the page. And I just go ahead and use the glue. The only negative with this glue is it really does leave an odor, and it smells. So if you have any kind of respiratory issues, you probably don't want to be using this particular glue. So now I'm putting it within the frame and leaving a little bit of an edge. but I think that looks really nice. And then since my photo is on top of the frame, it's got some dimension, but then, you know, I want something underneath as well. So I go ahead and lay down some adhesive so I can go ahead and position that little index card to be where I want it to be. You can use glue, you can staple, but you know, in this instance, the staple would show, and I wasn't really wanting that look. Then I took a couple of the long strips that are in the embellishment pack, and I'm using them behind the photo. And rather than doing it at another time, like when I'm putting the photo on the page, I decided to do it here so I can kind of actually really look at them as I'm putting them on there and see exactly how they're going to fall. I want one to be a little higher than the other, which is the one on the left. And then I wanted the polka dot one to be a little bit shorter. But I did want them to be also to the side of the index card. So then I'm just kind of looking again at where I think I'm going to want the photo to go. You can see me bringing in the stencil. I don't believe I use it yet at this point, but I am taking it out and looking at it, and I do use the stencil on this particular project. I believe I do that off camera, but I use some speckled egg distress ink to do that. And here you can see that, you know, nice little balloon embellishment that's from the laser cuts that's in the package. This kit does feature the 49 Market Little Celebrations collection. And so that's what you see me playing with here. I think I'm going to use the balloons and the viewfinder and then the florals that you saw me bringing in there. And I'm just playing around with where am I going to place the floral cluster as I work. And I pull the balloons over to the side, and I'm pretty sure I want those, but there I'm using my thinking fingers. And then I decide it's time to go ahead and commit. And I was thinking that I added some corrugated paper underneath my photo, but apparently I did not. I was thinking that this person might be wanting to put the layout in an album, and so I was trying to be thinking about the fact that they might not want so much dimension. And like I said, I wasn't feeling my best. I just felt like I was getting a virus or something, but then the next day I was fine, so I don't really know what was going on. But anyway, I put some adhesive there, and I'm determining, do I want the balloons under or on top of the photo? And then did I want them to be kind of at an angle? But I really decided I want them to be straight up and down. And then I bring in the viewfinder and look at it. And you do need to, if you want, of course, punch out your little holes on the viewfinder. And then also, because this was a birthday celebration, I'm going to look at using some of the cakes that are in the laser pack. And there's cakes, there's some macaroons, there's some different things. But I did, want to look at what I was going to use. And I do, change my mind on some of this, because there's also gifts in the embellishment or the laser cuts, and so you've got some different things you can choose from. I'm sorry I'm a little bit off center on this particular section. I don't know. I didn't get my camera quite right that day. It seems like that when the house cleaner comes that my camera gets moved around a little bit on my ring holder. So anyway, I'm slipping in that viewfinder and there's a line on it. I'm just making sure that is straight up and down. And then I'm deciding do I want those flowers over to the right a little bit? How would that look? And then I'm bringing in that cake, which has got one candle on it. But that's okay to be representative of, you know, any kind of birthday or celebration. I may have already said so, but this birthday person was 30 years old on her birthday. So that's why we were doing the tiara and the sash and, you know, all the stuff. And I've decided on the florals, and so I'm going to go ahead and elevate them with some foam squares just a little bit, because, you know, the picture is elevated on corrugated cardboard, so I needed to put some over on the right hand side so they would be flush. The florals in this collection, the papers in general, are just absolutely gorgeous. As I mentioned in my unboxing, I've long been a fan of Joanne Bain, and I'm just really love the delicate patterns that she comes up with. So there I'm bringing in then that little bird to see if maybe do I want him to be part of the page. And it looks like I'm committing to the cake, which I do, but I add another embellishment here in a little while. And the birds are in the laser pack, and there's several of them in there, different sizes and flying different directions. And then I've got the little tiny one there on the right that I audition and I keep playing around with throughout, trying to decide if I want him to be there or not. And then in the embellishment pack, there's some circular pieces that have different sayings on them. And this one says party time on it. And so I decided that would be really nice to add and to be my title. And then I pulled out one of the bows that are from the laser cuts, and I put it at the bottom of the balloon stack. And then I get this other little element that's one of the title pieces that's in the embellishment pack, and I kind of play around with where it's going to go, but I do place them on the balloons, and I think it says make a wish. For titles in this kit, I found that there was the circular pieces, there were several little pieces like this that I think was a cutout from the back side of the laser pack, and I used those for my titles. And then I've also used those round circular sayings. They were really nice for titles as well. And then of course you can use your own, you know, from your own stash if you have alphas that you like to use and that kind of thing. Or if you want to cut a title from your Cricut or your Silhouette. Anyway, things are shaping up pretty well right here, and I'm liking how everything looks, but I'm looking through the laser cuts. One package is mainly florals and leaves, berries, and feathers. The other pack is the one that is more the cakes and that kind of thing. So I pull out a single flower that I decided I want to add to above the little party time, just to kind of bulk that little collage area up of that cluster. There's so many nice little pieces to pull from. You know, at this recording, I've done 4 layouts and still have things left in, you know, the laser pack and from the embellishment pack. And I still have a couple pieces of paper left. And there I'm auditioning another flower to decide if I want that to go up there or not. And I figure that it would help soften those edges up there if I want to use it. And another thing I really like in the pack is the feathers. And so even if you have real feathers in your stash, that would be something else that you could include on your pages that would, really make them very dramatic. And since this was, I believe, my first page, I, was really feeling generous with all the embellishments. So I was really just experimenting and figuring out what was going to work for me and what did I like, and asking myself, am I going to be able to come up with 4 different neutral pages? And then I just actually flew through the kit once I got started on it. I've had lots going on this last month. I had a new roof on the house, and that led to almost 3 weeks or more of work with different subcontractors coming to work on the pergola and the fence and window screens and all those things. So there I'm bringing in some stars, and those are from the embellishment pack, but I thought they would just kind of round out that little bare area over there. And I thought about using 3 of them, but the third one is a little bit different color, and I really kind of decided that I had plenty at that point. I do grab a feather from the laser cuts and put it down there with my floral cluster just to see if I want to, fill that up a little bit more, or do I want to put it up there by the berries and flowers? But I go with the floral cluster there, and then I grab another one and put it on the other side. So see, that just makes that little cluster look even bigger, and that's nice to kind of balance out the big balloons that I have over on the left. There are several sets of the balloons in your laser cuts, and so for this one, I decided, since it was her 30th birthday, that I would use the biggest set of balloons on this page. And there I'm actually adhering the feathers. They are kind of a grayish tone, so this page might not look like it has that many colors in it, but even though it's neutral, it's got blues and it's got peaches, it's got tan, almost gold, and then the feathers and different pieces like that are almost a gray, and then the wood grain over on the side. There is the stencil. Oh, I'm showing you here where I have stenciled that, because I did that off camera. I'm sorry. And then also I'm showing you that I did some splatters with white paint, and so I did that. And I added some pearls. I'm sorry I didn't get the stenciling on camera. Here's some close-ups as well as the finished product. There'll be details below about how to order a kit. And I hope you've already received yours. If not, if you're not a subscriber, you can go online at mycreativescrapbook.com and see if there's any kits left. Thanks for coming by.